very good evening to everyone who has joined us today, and a very good afternoon to people who are joining us from all the way from Europe. A very warm welcome to everyone for in this another exciting episode of the Speaking's ongoing Managing Change series, where we are bringing the finest of experts from around the world to go through the magic of internet. Today's session is very special because we have guests who are not just present, who are not just logged in from three different countries, but I have logged in from three different continents. We have Ms. Meena Anand, we have Mr. Karunesh Prasad, and we have Dr. Sandy Chong joining us. And we have our esteemed moderator for today, Mr. Nim Kumaran, the fantastic man, the brains behind this entire panel. So I'll very quickly introduce Nim, and then maybe we can start with the panel. So Nim is currently the head of the Co, which is one of Southeast Asia's earliest innovators of co-working and community building. As part of the Arc Spaces group of companies, Nim, along with Co, is bringing together the world's largest organizations and startups, whether it's spaces to connect or supporting their future of work strategies, and spanning across Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, and China. Nim is a very enterprising individual and extremely passionate and curious, and is a well-known persona within the Southeast Asian ecosystem. A very warm welcome to you, Nim, and thank you so much for joining us at the panel.
Hi, Himanshu. Thanks for that. Flattery will get you everywhere.
I think I leave it up to Nim to introduce our other esteemed panelists. And Nim, it's your event now. It's your session. Looking forward.
Okay. Thanks for that, Himanshu. I guess before we get started, for the attendees, feel free to say, hello and where you're from. Understand we've got a few people from across the region. So really fortunate today. We've got three rock star speakers. So first up, and I've got my phone to help me. First up, we have Dr. Sandy Chong. So Sandy is a Harvard alumni and the founder of Verity Consulting. Sandy was born in Singapore and was raised in Australia. So prior to founding her own consultancy, Sandy's worked for a number of large organizations ranging from Amex to Curtin University of Technology, and a number of Australian government agencies in the areas of strategic marketing, public-private partnership, and corporate communication. Sandy's also winner of numerous awards, including Asia's Top Sustainability Women of the Year Award and the USA Stevie Awards for Women in Business, along with the Singapore Management Consultancy of the Year Award. I'm going to have a drink, Sandy, to... It's a lot of talk. In addition to that, Sandy was also recently awarded the Australian Community Citizen of the Year by the Governor. And her biggest passion is in bridging businesses with philanthropic causes, and is currently the first Asian to serve as the president of the United Nations Association in Western Australia. Did I miss anything out?
Thank you, Nick. Thank you.
So really glad to have Sandy. Next up, we have Meena. So Meena is an experienced HR practitioner and board advisor. She's operated at C-suite level for over a decade for some of the best known FTSE 30 organizations. She's a truly global executive. So right now you're in, is it London,
London, yes.
But with an immense experience across Asia Pacific. She's held significant chief HR officer roles. Most recently, she was overseeing the people transformation of circa 30,000 in shared service center across 18 locations and 4 countries for Standard Chartered Bank based out of Malaysia. She's a passionate disruptor, and we're lucky to have her with us today, as she's often sought to write and speak on next-gen HR challenges.
Thank you, Nim.
Awesome. And next
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for being here, Meena. And next up we have Karunesh. So Karunesh is, okay, I can see Karunesh now. Karunesh is an entrepreneur, speaker, and author. He writes on the topics of change transformation, future of work, and talent management. He's a global executive, having lived in and worked in India, Germany, Belgium, US, and Singapore. Karunesh currently runs a boutique change management consultancy called Change AL. Have I pronounced that correctly?
Yeah, that's fine. Change it out.
Change it out. Excellent. Here in Singapore. He's also the founder of Richard L, which is a platform for freelancers to connecting them with cloud HR technology, and it's a HR tech company. Awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone for joining. I'm just seeing we've got a couple of comments coming through. So I see we've got somebody from Mumbai. I see we've got Adrian. Which part of the world? I think Adrian is currently in Georgia, but it travels across the world. But I guess to start, the last few months have been, a challenge for all of us. How have you been coping so far? Perhaps we'll start with Karunesh.
Yeah, coping much better than we thought, actually. I must say that. And first couple of weeks, we were kind of a little taken aback by the fact that we can't move out, and we are constrained by the fact that we are staying back at home. But for us particularly, me and my team, we have been working from home for the last many years. 6 years. I've been doing this consulting work for the last 6 years, and I never had an office. We had an office once, and after 6 months, we gave it up because I was the only one sitting there. My entire team was working from the client's office, so there's no need for that. But having said that, I think it's a time for big disruption, like we were just hearing from Sandy also. This is the time. So we are busy actually looking at opportunities. How do we move some of our work from how we were doing it traditionally to online? So that's keeping us quite busy. And it's also exciting because we are trying to, try some new ideas, doing things differently. So keeping us very busy, much more than I thought. And that's where I am right now. But I would love to hear how Sandy and Meena are also managing that at this point of time.
Sandy, do you want to chime in? Oh, I can't. Oh, yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Right.
So it has been a challenging time. I would say that not so much for us, but some of our clients. So getting them to transit from a traditional work kind of arrangement to work from home, and how do you empower people? How do you communicate effectively? What sort of crisis communication policy do you have in place? Most of them don't even have one. And then how do you actually try and shift the thinking, the thinking of your workforce to looking at opportunities, thinking more strategically? Because again, it's very typical human behavior. When we are afraid and there's a lot of uncertainty, we just fall into either passive aggressive, either we just fight or flight, or we just put our head down. And it can be very debilitating because we are bombarded with all these information overload on a daily basis. So a lot of people do get their information from the corporation or for the companies that they work with, followed by the government and then the media, which means businesses have an important responsibility and role to play in informing and educating their workforce. So a lot of our work for the last couple of months have been helping clients through that transition. I also lead a nonprofit organization which is fully run by volunteers, including myself. So it is also a very tough time. They don't call the nonprofit sector a third sector for no reason. So there's a lot of people who are on the front line, who are supporting domestic violence, people who needed the support with regards to food and mobility. And so because we're just an advocacy organization, our mandate is to promote the issues and the values of the UN. So we can't be actually hogging all the funding, which means we have to think very creatively, how do we raise funds, and how do we then support all these other frontline organizations to do the job that they need to. I think that's what I've been busy with.
And I think also the narrative has changed from I to how do we get through this together?
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that's one of maybe the one good thing out of COVID. How about yourself, Meena? How have the last few months been for yourself?
Yeah, interesting. I think I've probably gone through a number of firsts. So both from a business perspective and from a personal perspective, having spent about 40 days without shoes, I didn't have to wear shoes for 40 days. That was quite good fun. to getting 10, 12,000 people in India actually working from home. That was a big goal. I've also had to wear several hats, and I'm sure everyone else has as well. In you're a coach, you're a counselor, you're an advisor, you're also a people leader. You're also trying to help your family get through this. So it's been interesting, and just in terms of how rapid the firsts have been, but also just the sheer number of hats that people have had to wear over the last kind of 30 or 40 days.
Absolutely. I think one of the challenges, I guess, with working from home is that not every household is set up for, so how did you sort of overcome those challenges for your teams in India? I
have to say, it's really tough. It's super tough to do. I think so. First of all, I think it's really having an open and honest conversation with the teams that you have, and being honest and open about the type of environment that you've got and what works and what's not going to work for you. But some really practical things as well. So we actually asked people to take photos of their workstations and send it back to their, so that we can get at least, not so much from a risk assessment perspective, but just to get a better understanding of the environment that people were working within. And some of them were actually really quite shocking, particularly in India. And it drove certainly the bank to really think practically. So even things like actually shipping chairs to people's homes so that they didn't suffer prolonged backache, to provide a kind of slush fund so they can actually provide, get tables and things like that. So even basic things, but even things like internet connections in India, a little bit unstable. So we provided kind of dongles. I mean, just there's so many practical things that we've had to do over the last kind of 30 or 40 days to just get people in a really good space while working from home.
Absolutely. And Karunesh, you mentioned that you've been working from home for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges you faced over those 6 years?
I think the basic thing is about our own discipline, because it's not only about working from home, it's also about maintaining a certain routine. So Meena just mentioned, and I was laughing because when she said that not wearing shoes for 40 days, that can happen to people,
Yes.
But having said that, there's a big difference. When I'm working from home earlier, I could still go and meet people at Starbucks. I could actually meet with the customers in their office. So I was going out very frequently, which has changed now. So one of the biggest change that I'm seeing is people have become much more flexible with the fact that we are not meeting in person. So it's absolutely fine to have a Zoom call. And I think that increases the productivity a little bit for people like us, because when we go to meet one customer, you can do at the most 2 or 3 in Singapore. Large cities, you can do not more than 2. So that's changed a little bit. Then the other thing is tolerance. I think the tolerance of everyone has gone substantially higher, because they are all talking about the same challenges of being able to manage kids, normal routine, and also doing those calls and constantly doing your work. So that has changed. So from my point of view, I'm seeing a very big shift in the way my clients were looking at working from home before versus now. And I also work with some of the banks who are my clients. Mm-hmm. I think I saw two extreme situations where one of the bank, very traditional, who would never take chances with people, even forget working from home. Even if they are in the office, there are multiple restrictions around what can you use. You don't have any USB port. You can't share your screen kind of situation, to now they are doing everything to make life easy for people to work from home. Mm. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is by organizations who are very savvy, IT companies who are like, doesn't matter, my people are anyway dispersed and they will continue to work from home. And I think that's making a big difference. Right now, what I'm seeing in the market is the companies who are already much more agile versus those who are not. Mm. You can see who's struggling and who's not there for as well.
And have you seen a shift in, I guess, skills that have gone from a nice to have, to more of a must have?
Oh, plenty. And people are coming forward requesting for some of the additional training from us and my training team. So I'll give you a simple example. If you talk about executive presence, if you talk about the way we present, talk, the way we are able to, make our point in a meeting versus how we do it virtually, it's a big difference. Mm-hmm. Being able to align your leadership team when you're working virtually or working from home, people who are not spending the informal coffee machine or water cooler discussion that we were having before, which is not happening. So mm-hmm. Imagine that if I'm a colleague of Sandy and Meena and you, Name, and if we were to do a general chat, which we could do, let us grab lunch together kind of a thing, is not happening. And the moment you say, let us schedule a time to talk about something, means it must be really important that you want to talk about that, setting up a time. Mm-hmm. And that shift is very big. So I can see people struggling with that shift, and therefore, how do we keep the leadership and the team aligned is therefore a very big topic. And we do a lot of work in that space. We were doing that before by running workshops. Now we just started something yesterday with a big company, which is on the same topic, but we are running the entire thing virtually now. So it's a big shift by itself.
And how about yourself, Sandy? Are you seeing a major shift in the skills?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just globally on the macro level, the kind of work, the kind of skills that people are looking for is no longer just the traditional ones. There is a real competition with regards to talent pool acquisition now. So if you have a good technological background, if you have a good STEM background, obviously you're going to be snapped up. It's extremely competitive. And from one of our clients, they told us that because everyone is now working from home, it's actually easier to poach employees because no one's listening in. So if you have those, obviously those tech or STEM skills, or if you have those employees, just, be watchful of them. And then another group of people that are in high demand are people with good emotional and analytical skills. Because in order to solve problems, you've got to have those skills, and it's no longer just a good to have. In good times, it's like a wish list. But now it's so important and so urgent that you really need people who can come on board, not just with a specific content expertise, but also someone who is very agile, someone who can communicate effectively, and someone who can literally analyze the problem very effectively, and then provide that solution to your employer. So all this are changing the way people are going to recruit. So these are just some of the things that we've been doing with our clients, like strategizing their international expansion strategies, and then looking at what kind of workforce they need to enable that. So just a lot of that sort of request has come through, and I see that to be very interesting. But again, on the macro level, the care economy is going to be huge. So is the green economy. So a lot of our clients in the manufacturing and production industry, they are really boosting up all their sustainability efforts. Even if they don't have the budget now, it's definitely something that they would like to focus on the recovery. So if you have any of those interests, if you're in sustainable or green engineering or production, I think you're prime for employment. Yeah.
Absolutely. How about yourself, Meena, from your experience with Standard Chartered?
So I think Sandy's right. I think the kind of skill sets that she's outlined from a technical perspective, spot on. I guess I would also add that I know it sounds old-fashioned, but actually good leadership and good people management skills. And so, and it's I don't think it's ever come to the fore rather than like right now. And the kind of things I'm talking about are things like, how do you build trust when you can't see everyone on a day-to-day basis? How do you decide what work can be done at home and where you need to make the choice to actually send somebody into the office? So decision making is really important. The operating rhythm that you set up as a leader has to change. So and including some of the things that like water cooler conversations, you kind of now have to almost plan for those as part of your day-to-day work. You know, being with your team. And I know it sounds silly, but actually it's about meaningfully engaging with your team. You don't have the usual signs and cues that to kind of tell you when somebody is really pissed off and somebody is really feeling down. You just don't have all of that. So you really do have to, trigger your compassion as a leader.
Absolutely. And I think working from home, it's possibly the biggest experiment in flexible working there is, and it's sort of been thrust upon us. I know, perhaps prior to COVID, a lot of CEOs were actually looking at the office as the way to, driving culture or to look after employee well-being. That's obviously been hit a bit of a curve now. So do you see, post-pandemic, do you see things staying as is or reverting back to, what it used to be?
I think a mixture. So if you speak to people like TCS, they basically said, they've actually been quite bold and say, 75% of their organization is going to be working from home over the next 5 years. They're going to make that happen. If you go to Facebook or Google, they basically said, look, we don't need you in the office until the end of the year. So I do think that I'm hoping what will happen as a result of this is that we'll have a much more resilient workforce, much more resilient. Going through this is super stressful. So I'm hoping that we'll end up with, if we can manage the big experiment carefully, that we'll be in much better place as organizations, as people, as communities, and overall just generally more resilient. And that is a critical skill in itself.
Absolutely. I think there's only a certain amount of time you can speak to the fridge and the sofa before getting on. I guess moving on to the topic of social isolation, are you seeing challenges for companies, or is it overused term?
No, I think it's very real. Oh, sorry. No, I think it's very real. So there has been a number of surveys that have been done recently, and 40% of people actually do think that their kind of well-being has suffered as a result of the COVID situation. I think it's just exacerbated things that already existed. So, for example, if you had a physical well-being issue, so think your backache, that would just be exacerbated. If you had a mental health condition to begin with, that's just going to come to the fore. And similarly with financial well-being, equally. It's just putting there's a lot of people with a lot of financial stress around. Yeah. And as banks, we're trying to do as much as we can to kind of help. And governments, of course, are doing quite a lot to help. But if you look at it from a physical, mental, and financial well-being perspective, I think there are real challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. How about yourself, Sandy?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Meena was saying. Taking care of employees' welfare is so important. And I think companies also need to remember, just because someone is working from home, it doesn't mean that they are no longer legally responsible for the well-being of the employees. And one of the biggest reasons why companies have always resisted doing teleworking, because there is a legal requirement to make sure that they are not going to be harmed, they are not exposed to violence, they are not exposed to any sort of occupational health and safety issues. And it is also codified in most national and international law, whether your individual company's contract is written in however ironclad way, that there are national and international law that protects these workers. So I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, there are many studies that state that the best format is 50% at home and then 50% away from home. So some companies have moved towards 75 or even 100%. And just because you want people to do that, it doesn't mean everyone's going to celebrate this. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be against it. So again, have you actually had that dialogue with your workforce to see if this is their preferred style of working? And not only that, the reason why a lot of teleworking are not doing very well, and this is what we see from a lot of our clients, is because a lot of the middle management are resisting it. So they could be at a certain age where they're not comfortable with change, or they're not comfortable with having to work from home. And so if you can't get the middle management to have a really high buy-in of this new working arrangement, then you're going to have a lot of problems. So I think just the way we work is going to change, and that's for sure. Once people get the hang of it, and even when times are okay and normal again, there will be some restraint on the way we spend the budget with travels and so on. So if you have a sales team, it's going to be an issue as well. So if your salespeople are so used to having that face-to-face, like what Karunesh was talking about, face-to-face meeting, face-to-face consultation, then all that is going to change. So how is it going to impact on the way you reskill or repurpose your salespeople, your customer service people, and then your workforce? So that's going to be an interesting one for companies in the future.
Absolutely. And Karunesh, from your perspective, how can companies create, I guess, better boundaries? I think for myself, working from home, I sometimes feel it's living at work.
Yeah.
Just with the additional hours, or working across multiple time zones.
I think what Sandy said was a very important point about the fact that companies do have that responsibility. We heard Meena talk about how Stanchart sent, for example, chairs. Why do we have ergonomic chairs? Because we need to make sure that the employees are safe. The dongle, and those are the basic infrastructure. So the company's responsibilities are not going away. But at the same time, it's not only about the hardware, it's also the software. When I say software, I'm talking about how do you provide the hand-holding support, the operating rhythm that we heard the word. And I think that's a very important part of the whole scheme of things, that how do you therefore keep your people together. So what I see happening, and that's my opinion, I think we will have to go back to certain amount of balance between working from office and working from home. We heard that the tolerance level will be higher. And Sandy made another great point about the sales team, that do you travel for everything, or can you manage your business without traveling? That question will be asked more often now. But having said that, the reason why companies have those large infrastructure is because there's economic sense in that. We are ultimately doing it for business. So a large setup where you have all the good, AC and infrastructure, conference rooms, your telecom and IT support, because there's rooftop consolidation, you are able to get the mileage out of that, and that's where you make some margins better. Imagine the same support system to be created in 5,000 homes in India. It's almost impossible. Mm-hmm. The other point is that I'll not name the company, but a very big, one of the top 100 listed company announced last week that they would like all their people to come back to work unless the country regulations are stopping them. And we did a deep dive into that, saying what is prompting that. They were talking about productivity. They said that, all said and done, there can be a lot of tolerance around things for a shorter period of time, but we are not ready to continuously work from home and think that we will be able to run business as usual, because we are not set up like that. Mm. Having said that, we will look at our rules and regulations much more differently going forward. And I saw they came out with a very big, guidebook on working from home. And they're trying to balance exactly what we heard just now from Sandy and Meena on things about health, safety, leadership, working from home, the norms for getting onto calls. So that's one side. The other side is that as government, as employees, as employers, everybody will have to be prepared for some changes coming in. So for example, another Facebook post I saw from a very good friend of mine who was talking about the fact that my people, our friends are installing apps which will be actually giving away a lot of information. I refuse to install any apps.
Mhm.
And if you are doing that, and if I'm on your contact list, please remove me. And I thought he was right. I mean, he has a right to say that. But imagine there will be organizations who will say, you know what, I would like to monitor the productivity of my people, and therefore how much time you are able to actually spend online. Sorry for the intrusion, but we are doing that because earlier I was asking you to clock in and clock out of the organization also.
Is that a bit big brother?
So we'll see those kind of discussions happening, and I think there will be tolerance, but at the same time there will be some very difficult questions that we all need to answer to ourselves, and for the government to actually jump in to see what laws and statutory requirements they create.
And I think another big talking point right now is around mental health, and is ensuring the mental well-being of your people, whether it's in the office, whether it's at home. I think a burning question right now is how do you support your employees from burning out? Meena, do you have any insights around this?
So I think first of all, just acknowledging that how much disruption has been created in people's lives, and I would start there, just acknowledging that. I also think it's really important for organizations, leaders, people leaders to actually have really good understanding of the individual circumstances and the support that each individual in their team may need. Because just because somebody may be entirely comfortable working at home and never need to go into the office at all, and you may have the other extreme where they're actually dying to go back into the office. So I think actually really understanding, the crux is really understanding the individual needs and challenges that the person's facing. I think thirdly, look for signs. And it's harder to do when you're working remotely. So signs could be people not taking breaks, people being a little bit more irritable than they are normally, and they are overreacting to problems that they're facing. They withdraw. Some people actually, there's a couple of people in my team that I actually had to physically call myself because I hadn't seen them on 3 or 4 calls for 3 or 4 on calls for 3 or 4 days. So withdrawal is really important. So look for the signs. And I think lastly, especially in Asia, I think it's it's quite difficult sometimes for individuals to express their emotions and what they're really feeling, and finding mechanisms to do that. So, and tricks and tips to do that. So a couple that I've used successfully is emojis. I know everyone hates them. But,
any particular emoji?
You'd be amazed that you just give them, you give the teams, like your teams a different set of emojis. And, at the start of every meeting, you kind of say, okay, so how's everyone feeling? And they just kind of literally just click on the emoji. Another one is rating yourself from 1 to 10. So how are you feeling? And it's interesting how, some people actually, say, and you'd expect everyone to kind of say, oh, I'm feeling okay, especially in front of their own leaders. But in fact, it varies quite considerably. And then that encourages a bit more of a dialogue. So just there's 3 or 4 things that I think you do to just kind of check in.
Absolutely. And how about yourself, Karunesh?
So there are multiple things happening simultaneously. One of the things that I tried, and I was thinking about this whole challenge of people isolation, and it was the same for us earlier also, but what we have started doing from the last few days is we started like online getting together as a team. So what we're doing is that 2 hours window, and I have team members in India, I have team members in Singapore, and we all come together on a Zoom together at the same time. a lot of people have questions to ask each other, so we do that. We use the breakout room to be able to go on a side conversation, come back from there. So we are trying that not because we don't have enough opportunities to talk one-on-one. It's more because of the same thing that Meena was saying, that you don't generally set up a call to talk about general challenges or your mental health or how you're feeling. You don't set up that time.
Yeah.
But within the team, once we did that, we saw that, people are actually coming forward and doing that and using that time. And those 2 hours, it's not compulsory. Not everybody has to be there the entire time. But I thought it's coming together quite well. And there are a few topics that we need to work together on. We are able to work together. And that's working out pretty well. Other thing that on a different topic or a different line, I'm seeing a sudden demand for EAP, Employee Assistance Program. A lot of companies, a lot of vendors are under stress trying to provide that, because those organizations who were doing that earlier were mostly very forward-looking, larger organizations. And now you are suddenly seeing that need coming from many others also, because they are recognizing the fact that this will be needed. And not every time you want to talk to only your manager or your boss, you may want to talk to somebody absolutely different.
Yeah.
So that's another thing which is picking up. I think it's the right thing to happen.
Absolutely. And I think, with a lot of companies, business leaders are pivoting towards, their most valuable asset, which is talent. And I think from what I see, particularly here within Southeast Asia, the companies and the teams that have very diverse workforce, or have put inclusion and diversity at the forefront of their business, they somehow seem to be weathering the storm maybe slightly better than others. Sandy, have you seen any trends around this?
Yes, absolutely. So most of our clients have offices all over the world internationally, and you mentioned something about psychological safety, right? So apart from the fact that you have this remote working arrangement, you have the intercultural working arrangement as well. So companies who have done that has offices overseas and have many different cultural diverse background people working for the company, they are actually able to transit into this work arrangement much better than those companies that are more homogeneous. Another thing that you just mentioned about diversity. So if you're a company that has a lot of various background and not so homogeneous, yes, during this time you're going to have a lot of ideas, a lot of opinions. It may be a little bit chaotic, but some of the breakthrough ideas came out from crises and recessions are from diverse team. So you need to acknowledge and you need to identify these people. And you also have these groups of people where you call them diversity champions. So they could be Filipinos who are working in Singapore, for example. And so they're quite used to not taking everything literally. They live in multicultural background. They've worked in multicultural contexts or corporations. So these are the people who are, how should I say, cultural ambassadors or cultural champions. And they would help homogeneous companies, like say, for example, you're fully based Australian companies, you haven't actually gone overseas before. So having those champions helping you and identifying those issues and challenges for you will be extremely helpful. Having said that, I think you mentioned about that psychological safety. It is so important to do that, because when you have a team in Australia, for example, one of our clients, the Australian team would say, oh, these agents don't talk a lot when we have these teleconferences. Yeah. They're so quiet. Are they passive? Do they not have any ideas? Or what is it? What they don't understand is in Asia, we're quite conformative and we don't like confrontation. And if we don't like anything, we wouldn't say out loud in front of everyone. So it's like what Meena was saying. Very little is seen, a lot is unseen, like an iceberg. So, if you're managing an international team, you need to be aware of this. And not everyone is privileged to have a space of your own in a home. And in Asia, a lot of people live with their parents. They live with kids. And sometimes people mute their videos or they mute the audio because they're embarrassed about, who's walking behind, like their grandmothers or their kids. And so we got to be extremely culturally sensitive as well, because in most Western countries, we don't have to live with the parents, but in Asia, it's a different case. So those are just some of the things that people need to understand. And then, of course, the way we communicate during the meetings, and then there's always meeting after meetings.
Yes.
So following up with WhatsApp, following up with whatever platform or communication chat groups is really important. So checking in on people is really important. And I think from some of our clients, what we see really worked is when you have a meeting, you want to make sure that everyone is active, everyone is a participant. It is extremely important to just check into a Zoom and then just fold your arms back and then just observe and be this really passive attendee. And you don't want that. So as a leader, your job is then to engage and make sure that everyone, irregardless of their position, gets to talk and everyone gets to comment on a particular challenge. Otherwise, you're going to get people who are just going to be like, I really don't want to be here. When is this going to be over? And they're not going to contribute. So I see that you have intercultural issues when you work in offices. And on top of that, now you have this added layer of challenge with remote working and how people react and communicate online. So those are just some of the things that, company will probably need to investigate and spend time, overcoming.
And I think also with the future work of perhaps the office will evolve itself to be the place to connect or the place to meet. So it seems that there's obviously people that are very pro working from home. There are people pro from the office. I think it will somehow we'll meet somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
We've got a few questions here, so let's try and. Okay, so we have Arjun. So Arjun's asked, since working from home is becoming a norm, do you feel that companies now would look hiring globally for their teams, since they are not restricted by any geography now? Who would like to answer that?
I'm already seeing that, actually.
Okay.
I'm seeing that a lot, and I'm sure so is Sandy and Meena, because that barrier is going away. And like we are attending conference calls or webinars from all over the world, same thing is happening with the work also, because it's no more restriction. That, along with another thing which is likely to come in, is that the time zone will decide your workplace, literally, in my opinion, because if there are people sitting in Australia, they can work with Philippines as well as China, as well as Vietnam. I think that combination of the time zone will create a workplace by itself. And I can see that happening because the 3 or 4 different time zones, if we divide that, I can see people kind of hiring or working with those people a lot. So I've been working a lot with the people in Philippines and India, including my team members, because it's easy to do that. But afternoon time, Europe, a lot of people who are working from there are able to collaborate and work together. So I can see that the team formation will change. Being able to include people from other geographies will become more. So it is not about every time global mobility and how quickly you are able to get the get the person moving to another location. It's about, if you're in the same time zone, can you work from there? Let us go ahead and do that.
So are we likely? Is the world likely to become a massive BPO center?
Some part, yes. I would say some part, yes. I mean, you cannot do with all the jobs, but there is a big chunk of roles which were already being done in a slightly different way. So think about all the creative guys, the graphic designers, the writers who are already doing that. A lot of consultants like us are doing a lot of work virtually, and if that is going to happen, my competition is not confined to the country that we are in. It could be anywhere in the world. So we need to be ready for that as well. And same thing with the organizations now.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Karunesh. We've got another question from Paul. What does the future hold for freelancers, and how are things looking for the future work in the gig economy? Sandy, do you want to?
I think with this economy, it's going to be interesting. As a freelancer, I also see a lot of opportunities now, like what Karunesh have just mentioned. People are hiring globally, and if you're able to pitch yourself and market yourself effectively, then you will always have a job. And digital branding, digital transformation is all the rage at the moment. So, yeah, online branding and online positioning is going to be really key on how do you stand out from this whole crowd. So, recently we had a webinar on digital branding and selling online. Do you market yourself or do you not market yourself, and how do you market yourself? Because this is a really interesting time, and if you do overt marketing, it's being frowned upon. And that's unless you're a frontline supplier or a provider to the current crisis, you can't do anything else other than compassionate marketing. So how do you stand out, and how do you eloquently articulate your unique selling point without seeing like you're just trying to promote yourself? So those are very very tricky thing to balance. So I think if you're a freelancer, you would see a lot of trial and errors and so on. But I definitely see this gig economy is just going to get bigger. So I see lots of opportunities. Yeah.
And there's obviously a lot of support for freelancers. There's networks you can tap into.
Absolutely.
I guess it's about also creating a professional image, whether that's on LinkedIn, whether that's taking a business address in a nice building. So there's definitely a lot of support there. But so we've got one final question. This is from Ambi, and his question is: an organization builds social capital by making people make connections at work. Will this work as well in the work from home scenario? Meena, did you want to?
So important, such an important issue in terms of building social capital, particularly for organizations and that are truly relationship based. I think you just have to find different ways of doing it, to be honest. And some of the practical things we talked about in terms of, for example, if you're going to have a meeting. So for example, I'm just been appointed to a board of a school locally in the UK. And the first board meeting, the chair basically said, okay, well, for the first 15 minutes, we're just going to chit chat. And I think that's the kind of thing that we need to kind of start to do. Super important, and you need to make time and space for it.
Yeah, and I think also, having perhaps a bit of curiosity with a small dose of kindness, given this particular time. I think it's a great way to, build connections, whether you're in an office or, you're working remotely. We've had a couple of more questions that are just creeping in. So this will be the final one. So it's an interesting one. And this is from Rahul. How will the KRAs and KPIs change? And Sandy, do you want to?
Yep, sure. So with clients who are now moving towards this work from home and obviously looking at a real shift in their talent acquisition, they probably have to be more calculated with the outcomes. So it could be in a measure of conversion. And like I said, someone asked a question about what is compassionate marketing. So compassionate marketing means you must be doing something, or you're giving something educational or informational to your community, rather than selling, hey, I've got this product. So Subway, for example, try to sell 2 buns and then in exchange you get a face mask. That campaign was attacked horribly. So and that's just marketing. So with regards to other forms of work or other forms of function or operation within your firm, you need to be able to ask yourself, obviously, what are you trying to achieve during this crisis? And then with regards to recovery, what sort of KPI are you going to attach with the recovery? Is it going to be brand retention? Is it going to be maintenance of your equity? Or is it going to be increase in sales. I mean, it's going to be really tough because not only are you going to lose a lot of your employees if you're not doing it right, you're also going to lose a lot of clients. In fact, people were saying that during this crisis, there's a lot of switching of branding, because if your competitors are very savvy online and very savvy during this digital transformation, and if they say, for example, they have a better packaging or bundling of products that are more digestible in terms of cash flow for people, then people are willing to switch as high as 60%. So, again, I mean, would your KPI be just maintaining your current revenue, or are you factoring, say, the attrition rate? So it really depends where you're at. But hopefully, the way I see it is, if you prep yourself well enough, if you're able to shift or pivot effectively, then you should be looking at an increase. So many companies and many studies have proven after crisis, some companies are actually doing better, 14% better than what they would do in normal times. So again, it goes back to that diversity, having very creative mind, having very prompt solution providing team within the company, and obviously having strong leadership and really strategic form of leadership. I think that is so important.
Absolutely. Karunesh?
So I look at this a little bit differently. If I were to divide the KPIs and the KRAs of an organization into 2 or 3 different tiers, I think the first tier of people, talking about growth or going forward with the key imperatives of the organization, if that changes, then I have a problem of how it was set up in the first place. But the moment you go to tier 2 and tier 3, which are more like the activities that people do to reach the same goal. So that's where instead of going in person, you're doing the activity online, selling it online, creating more branding. That part will certainly change. And therefore, that change will also drive some amount of the way it was monitored before versus it is monitored now. I think that part will change for sure. So second and third tier, which is like, if I go by the KRA model and say that the lowest level is activities, those activities will probably change completely. But the first 2 tiers will remain the same. The other part is that how it is actually monitored. The managers will have to actually, go to the extreme of saying that I'll leave it to the person. I wouldn't dictate always that how and when it has to be done, because that's where the conflict may come in. People are actually doing multitasking continuously. Think about people who have kids at home, trying to cook a meal, having parents at home. They want to be able to manage everything at their own convenience, and that will be a very big shift by itself. That's my take.
Absolutely. And there's just a question that's, I think it just ties in with that. So this is from Khalida, if I pronounce that correctly. The question is, how important is remote monitoring of employees? Will it not lead to an invasion in privacy and add to mental stress of employees? I think there's an element of trust.
Trust, exactly.
on both sides. Meena, do you have any insights around this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree with you totally in terms of the trust piece. I think you need to be careful about what your hypothesis is with remote working, and that the productivity is necessarily going to fall. In fact, yes, there will be an initial drop because people need to get used to new processes, new technology. They need to set up, their own schedules, how to deal with childcare and so on. So for the first initial piece, I do see productivity decreasing, and we've seen it. I've seen it in Standard Chartered. If you have productivity studies after change, it's inevitable that it will drop slightly. Actually, and I like Sandy's point about the 14% increase, because I think that's what we're actually seeing. That we're seeing, certainly in Standard Chartered, when we were looking at it, about a week after the change had been put in place, productivity actually went up by about 20% because people had more time. I think they didn't have a long commute into work. People didn't take holidays, so you then had a lot more capacity, which created increased productivity. And so I think just be careful about your hypothesis, and especially with organizations that are new to remote work. Don't assume that productivity is naturally going to decline. And building trust on a longer term basis is where you should really focus.
Absolutely. So I think it's true. Probably a one size doesn't fit all approach, whether it's for the employee or whether it's from the organization. But it's been wonderful listening to all your insights today. So thank you very much for your time. And any final comments from the speakers?
I wanted to add to what Meena was saying before. Time and time again, studies have proven that productivity, once you get over the transition, productivity doesn't go down, it actually go up. There are also other positive implications to this. So say, for example, in March, I went and visited a Japanese company here in Australia. They're one of the largest oil and gas investor here. It's called Impacts. So for the longest time, they have difficulty retaining, attracting, and promoting women within the organization. But because at this very beginning of the crisis, they were experimenting the work from home structure. And the feedback I got from the vice president was that, you know what, people's productivity didn't go down. It actually maintained, if not go up. Like all those studies that has been done so many times before. And because of that experience, they are really contemplating seriously now more about how can we implement this to attract our female and retain our female workforce. So if you're a mother, you just given birth to kids, are you going to lose that job? Are you not going to apply for that promotion because you feel like you're out of touch with whatever office politics is, or you're not given that opportunity to apply? So now it seems like, and also because this particular Japanese company, they recognize the fact that it's a very male-dominated industry and male-dominated company. And therefore, by just trying this out, it has all these positive perks, which they might just keep for a long time. So I just feel that very much like what Meena and Karunesh were saying, you can't monitor your employees and survey them. Yes, it is a huge, how should I say, it's not just an infringement to your privacy, it's kind of creepy. I've heard of cases where bosses would put cameras in the office to observe every single move of the employees. But the thing is, why would you want to lead by surveillance? You could have lead by purpose. You know, if you have a very strong leadership, or if you have a great vision, people will follow you, and people would jump through hoops. If you take care of people, people will take care of business. I think this is an era where you can see, and you are already witnessing the true value of leadership from different parts of the world, how some leaders are leading their country, and how some leaders are effectively communicating the right information to their people. And it's really how should I say, it's really revealing, and this is a good time to learn what good leadership can actually offer to your people. And you can blame the employees for being unproductive, you can blame technology or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's your job as a leader to lead effectively.
I mean, this is the perfect time for experimentation, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. But thank you all for joining today, and make sure you stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you on a webinar very soon.